Like, I'm sorry. Okay, here's my opinion on, like, real quick. My opinion on these, like, fucking labels, like these, like, left wing. In fact, maybe I'll make this a segment. Okay, Andrea's hot take on left wing labels. So, Marxist Leninism, cringe. It's cringe. Like Maoism, cringe. Like fucking, like, any of these, like, isms, right, are cringe. Now, I would even go as far as to say, like, anarchism is cringe. Like, they're all cringe, right? Now, personally, I consider myself an anarchist, or an anarchist communist, right? Because those are just like, those are words that have definitions. Marxist, Leninist, that doesn't. First of all, one, you're naming your ideology after a person. Like, let's be honest, that's cringe. Like, you think, like, people that follow in lockstep with what Donald Trump is saying, like, that's cringe. Like, like, you are literally naming your ideology after a dead guy. Like, I'm sorry, man, that's all time cringe. You are a loser with no imagination. Like, at least, like, be a communist or something. Like, be cool. I've got, like, this clump of used napkins here. But, so anyway, that's a knock against Marxist Leninism. You're naming your fucking, like, you're coming on, who are my two biggest, like, fucking sexual fantasies that I want to be, like, get, like, spit roasted by? Marx and Lenin. All right, let's throw them in there. Like, if your ism is named after a person, you're a loser. But, like, okay, so that's fine. Let's say it's not about Marx, it's not about Lenin, it's about the ideas, man. I've met a lot of these MLs, right? And they're just cringe. All they do is say, read theory, bro, read theory. How about this? I live in the goddamn United States of America. My life experience is theory, motherfucker. I don't need to read a goddamn book to understand why the world is fucked up. I just walk outside. I live my goddamn life. I remember being 6 years old. I don't need to read your goddamn fucking theory. Like, for me, like, ML just screams like fucking trust fund baby, like champagne socialist, which that's no problem. If you're on the right side, if you agree with me on like things that matter, like that we need universal health care, that, like that kind of stuff, like, that's great. That's wonderful. But I mean, again, these read theory scumbags. I personally think the only labels that matter at all are anarchist, communist, and socialist. That's it. Now, also, I think communist and socialist are exactly synonyms. I don't see there's no context I can imagine where someone would use the word communist and socialist in different capacities. Like, they are synonyms, right? Anarchist is more of like a direction, but they all lead to the same thing. Like, the definition of anarchism, an anarchist philosophy would result in communism, is to achieve communism. So they all result in communism. As long as your ideology results in communism, that's fine with me. But I mean, like, MLs, they're just so cringy. Like, internet, like, super communists, like, they're so goddamn cringy. That's not to say that anarchists can't be cringy, right? I've met some really cringe lord anarchists, right? But, like, goddamn, like, at least anarchism isn't named after someone. Like, like, a lot of anarchists, will jerk off to Kropotkin or something, but no one calls himself a fucking Kropotkinist or something, and that's something you gotta understand. Like, there's no hero worship on the anarchist side, and you can't say the same about the MLs. They are steeped in hero worship. But anyway, at the end, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to do that because I love getting, like, you see this often on Twitter. Like, Twitter people will, like, literally argue for, like, weeks and weeks and weeks in the same Twitter thread about which label is a better label to achieve la revolution, and I think they're all stupid. But anyway, so that's that little side rant. Hugo, I think Marx and Lenin are fine people for historical purposes. I was never convinced to hate them or anything like you were, but, like, I'm also not convinced that, like, Marx or Lenin are, like, particularly, like, great. I mean, I would say, like, of that era, I would say, like, fucking, like, I don't know, like, like, other forms of scientists have done more positive things in the world. I would say, like, fucking, like, Charles Darwin has probably, like, done better like, advancing good ideas in this country than, like, Marx or Lenin, and that's just my opinion. Name one anarchist country. First of all, name one communist country. Just kidding. You can't, because in order for communism to happen, there cannot be a state. I'm sorry. Like communism is a stateless society. Like you cannot have a communist country. It's impossible. Now you can have like an area that's communist, right? Like you can have like a fucking like commune that can be communist, but it's not a country. Anything conceived before air travel is automatically outdated. Yeah, that's another problem. In fact, let's go back into the label bullshit. We're rewinding. We're going back in. These like ancient ass like fucking political ideologies that don't factor in automation and technology, they're useless. They're useless. I'm sorry. If you are basing your ideas off of a book from 1841 or whatever, like you are automatically losing. You're a loser and you're starting from a place of losing. Now again, if you want to read history for the sake of reading history to understand things and how like people like got to these points and where we are right now, I agree with that. I love reading history. I love understanding history. And you can apply historical events and examples to the modern day. But if your political ideology does not factor in automation and technology, you're a loser. You've lost. Like you're already a loser. You will never win. There's nothing for you to win because you're a loser. Like this world has winners and losers, and you are in the losers column. I'm sorry to say, right? Like we have a situation right now where there is no such thing as scarcity. How the fuck like would Karl Marx like be able to understand a planet where there's no such thing as scarcity? There's no such thing as food scarcity. There's no such thing as water scarcity. There's no such thing as land scarcity. It's all made up. And who made it up? Capitalists. They made it up so that we fight over small amounts of resources to each other. Whereas like Bill Gates is owning like fucking, he's buying like thousands of acres of fucking farmland, right? He's gonna build like fucking factories on that shit. Like again, automation and technology, where we are in the world right now is so different than where we were in 1823 that like the idea that you're gonna base your ideology off of something that happened in fucking 1912 or whatever, like I'm sorry, it's just in 1917, my apologies, but it's like I don't know, man. Like what we have infinite food, we have infinite resources, we have infinite water. Now it might not feel like that because again, capitalists like to pretend like there's scarcity. But when you look at the world as it is right now, there is more than enough food, water, and land to house not just 7 or 8 billion people, but 50 billion people, right? Like we can expand significantly more on this planet without any problems. The problem is distribution, right? That's the problem. And so the problem is like how do we control AI? How do we control automation? How do we control capitalists? And the answer is we don't. We're just going to die. But that's just me being a doomer. But again, like all these debates that don't factor in automation, all these debates that don't factor in technology, and all these debates that don't factor in that we are post-scarcity already, we have achieved post-scarcity, they're all useless. All these ideologies that are based on like equally distributing scarce resources, there's no such thing. You're living in a fantasy land and get with the goddamn times. And that's why I don't think labels mean anything. I really don't. Like if you're an ML and you're arguing with a fucking MF like SW question mark, right, you are wasting your goddamn time. If you're a fucking Maoist and you're arguing with an anarchist on Twitter, you're wasting your goddamn time. You're a loser. You're a dumbass. And also, like I don't know, man. When I say we have infinite resources in Environmental Coffee House, I mean for the current population. I'm not saying that we can go infinitely forever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying right now, when it comes to having 8 billion human beings, we have more than enough for anyone on planet Earth to live like fucking 30 lifetimes. Like with splendor and riches. Like we could all live like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk lives on a daily basis without any problem at all when it comes to resources on this country or in this planet even. But anyway, if you want to be a communist or whatever brand of communism, that's cool. Like, that's chill. I think we're all on the same side. Ultimately, we're all on the same side, and that's good. But, like, I mean, these, like, branding wars, like, people... Like, again, if you go spend any time in left-wing Twitter spaces, you will see these brand wars where they're just like, my label is better than your label. Yeah, we all agree on everything except for, like, small, like, amounts of, like, like messaging. Maybe that's the disagreement usually boils down to messaging. But like we all agree on everything, but let's spend years of our lives arguing with each other online. It's a waste of goddamn time. So I wanted to talk about that. There are 0 ML countries. I mean, I don't know what you think is an ML country, but there are 0 ML countries because Marxist-Leninist ideology is, unless you're saying that it's not a communist ideology, okay, but in order for a communist state to exist, it must achieve communism. Now, you could be a communist and not have achieved communism because you are attempting to achieve communism, right? But you cannot have a communist state because in order for it to be communist, it would have to therefore not be a state. I don't know what to tell you. And also, we need to get rid of this country thing. Like Sinquil is saying, like Rahava and stuff like that, right? Like, those are not states. Those are not countries. But those are areas that have governed and functioned as an ideal communist area. They have, like, with anarchist principles, right? They're not countries, right? What is a country, right? Like that, like you can have a commune in the middle of like fucking Montana that probably governs like a communist country. It's not a country. Countries are made up. There's 183 countries, whatever there is, and 192 now. I don't know. Right? These are all made up. There is no such thing as a communist country because there's no such thing as countries. Individual areas can function in a communist fashion until a state gets involved. Look what happens with Rojava. The state gets involved and fucks it up. There is no possibility of achieving communism, like true communism, anywhere on the planet until imperialist nations are defeated. The United States of America, as it exists right now, cannot exist and cannot coexist with a communist area across the planet because guess what? Unless that communist location has the same war power that the fucking USA military does, as soon as the US decides, that shit is gone. Your communism is over. Your experiment is gone. There is no such thing as a communist country because in order for communism to be achieved, we need to just be over imperialist. We need to live in a post-imperialist location. But again, and also this idea of countries, like we're not doing countries here. Like my fucking house is communist, like my town can be communist. That doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like I think we should all strive to like make our neighborhoods to be like living like communes. That would be great. We should all continue to do so under capitalism, make our personal lives as communistic as possible. But we cannot have communist countries. We can have communists in governments in countries, but they're not communist countries. I'll tell you that much.